If you want to load ammunition for hunting with precision, this is the video for you. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm back with Guy Miner. Thank you for joining us, Guy.
It's good to be here.
That's right. You guys have seen Guy and this equipment before. You did 4570 and was it 25-06? Did
right.
you also do that? We thought it'd be fun to get the MEC equipment out again, this time showcasing something a little bit different. Hunting ammunition has certain considerations, right? Reliability, feeding, all-weather performance. But if you also want precision, that's also very doable.
It is, yeah. And that's become way more popular over the last, however far you want to go back, 10, 12, 15 years, maybe 20 years. At the outside probably, for people looking at real precision matched grade type loads for their hunting rifles and for going hunting with. I think a lot of that came from the popularity of long range hunting as it got more and more popular.
Yeah, and my philosophy is, why not have the precision? Even if you're likely to take that 60 to 120 yard shot, whatever it happens to be in your area, wherever you're hunting, why not? You know, we're hand loaders. We have the ability to select a bullet that's going to group well. We can pick a load that's going to perform to our specifications, and I always like precision in a rifle too. So you put the package together and you got something great.
It's real satisfying when you've got your deer load worked up and you go out to the range to check things, you know, sight in old Betsy before the season opens, and you're shooting a group like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, it's a wonderful feeling.
Absolutely. So what we're going to cover are things including a quick recap on the MEC Marksman press, which has some unique characteristics and features. We're going to talk about component selection, the loading process end-to-end for hunting with precision, testing the groups at 100 yards and beyond, and then kind of a wrap-up. So let's get into a quick recap on the Marksman. Now you saw this in the 14 press single stage shootout. If you want to buy a single stage reloading press, I highly recommend that you watch that video. And I think where the Marksman really shined in that story was a couple things. The overall ergonomics of the press, its flexibility. In terms of ergonomics, you've got the ambidextrous handle, you've got the open front. Those are two things that really make it a pleasure to work with. But then you've also got really good leverage. When we compared this press with some of the other presses, the mechanics of the linkage and the handle and everything together meant, you know, really good. And is that kind of what you felt like when you were sizing this 308?
Oh, absolutely. You know, not that 308's that tough to resize anyway,
sure,
but this just slid up and slid down, and there it was, presto, bingo, no effort hardly.
Yep.
Very nice.
Made in USA from US sourced materials. It's a really good press. So there's some of the things. It also has the patented floating shell holder for self-alignment with the die, which is a pretty cool feature.
I think that's one of the keys to coming up with some real good ammunition from this press is that shell holder, free floating. Kind of helps that cartridge case center up in the die very nicely.
Absolutely. So when it comes to component selection, now when you're thinking about precision hunting ammunition, tell me about your thought process for the components.
I'm going to start looking at a bullet that not necessarily is, you know, there's many bullets out there, hunting bullets out there that'll do the job, but if you really want that tight group, there's some that have that reputation for, my goodness, this thing will group.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. I like looking at one that can get you into that match grade accuracy easily under MOA time after time after time. That's what, and all the way out to however far I'm going to be shooting.
Yeah.
And for me, I've limited my big game shots to 400 and in. The right circumstances with this rifle, I'd go 600-ish, but no farther than that. I know other people have shot game out there at 800, 900, 1100 yards. Okay, that's not my game.
Right.
That's not what I do. So that's fine. I'm very content at 600 and in, or even 400 and in.
Yep.
I like that precision. One of the things that I do in determining that is I try to figure out from the manufacturer's literature and maybe from some testing, how slow can that bullet go and still expand when it hits the game animal? So that expanding bullet is what causes so much of the damage.
Yeah.
And so I like to get a lot of expansion in there. And some bullets that's around 2,000, some it's down around 18. Some of them I understand go down to 1,600 or even less and have reliable expansion.
Yep.
That's good.
That's what Hornady documents for their ELDX bullets.
16?
For instance, is 1,600 feet per second.
Nice.
Yeah, and you know, not every bullet type will perform equally in different weights and for different calibers. The 143 ELDX, for instance, in 6.5 Creedmoor, performed super good in terms of accuracy, you know. But maybe depending on the rifle, go up to a 308, 212 or whatever ELDX, and it might not shoot quite as well. Probably plenty good for all but the most demanding long-range scenarios. But, you know, that's the great thing about hand loading, in my opinion, is that you're just really able to experiment and dial things in and try a bunch of different components. You know, you could buy a box of 100 bullets and give it a shot and see what happens.
Yeah, and you're right. As a hand loader, I like because you get real familiar with your rifle and that particular cartridge you're working with. You try some of the different bullets, you try some of the different powders and all, and you can really dial in a load that not only does your rifle like, but that you get real familiar with.
Yeah.
And that's nice to know about. So yeah, I like to start with taking a look at the bullet that I want to use, and then the other components. Brass. What are you going to use for brass? If you can find it in stock.
Right.
These days we have some really good choices though. You've got Lapua, always makes good high quality brass. I found I had a small mountain of federal gold medal once fired brass.
Nice.
Right out of this rifle. And so I tend to rely on that. And it needs maybe a little attention, but not much. It produces some really nice loads. In fact, the factory loads were so good that I said, okay, I'm going to use this brass happily. And I do. Primer, why not treat yourself and your rifle to a match grade primer?
Sure.
And I look at Federal 210s and I look at CCI BR2s. Those are the first two I take a look at. Man, if they can't do it, I don't know what will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Powders, this is a 308. Most of you guys have loaded 308 at some time or another. And there's a lot of powders that work, and there's some powders that work well. My first thought when I get to a 308 is I turn to Varget.
Yeah.
I get good velocity, real tight spreads, and boy, do I get some good groups downrange.
And it's an extreme powder, and that means it's formulated for temperature stability, which is a key consideration in a hunting environment. Now, it'll depend on where you're going and what you're doing, but you know, it could be anything from well below zero to, I don't know, around here it gets pretty hot in bear hunting season, you know, 106 degrees Fahrenheit.
We're looking at bear season coming up in what, a week and a half, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And it's 90 plus degrees today. And
it'll be in the hundreds by then.
Yep. And last winter by November or so, we were seeing stuff down well below freezing.
Still bear season, right?
Yeah, November 15th.
The tail end of it. Yeah. So that's what's kind of neat about that season here. Yeah.
It is.
Yep. So, I think I like your approach and your philosophy of kind of starting with the bullet and then kind of working your way backwards. All right, this bullet has a particular weight, and if you're not familiar with powder selection, you know, there's light for caliber, typical for caliber, and heavy for caliber, and sometimes you'll find one type of powder is the sweet spot for one weight range, and then you'll need to go to, for instance, a slower powder if you're going to increase the weight of the bullet.
Right.
So that'll be another consideration. And then if you're loading it in bulk, which you probably aren't for big game hunting ammo, then the metering of the powder would be something, you know, to think about.
That's when something like tack looks so good.
Yeah.
Because it just flows right through the measure.
Stay ball 6.5, you know,
all those spherical powders.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about the first half of the loading process, which is getting the case ready for your primer and your powder and your bullets. So this is kind of sizing and prep. Let's walk through this.
Yeah, this to me, especially the cleaning and the lubing and all that, is probably the most tedious part of hand loading as far as I'm concerned. But it has to be done.
Yeah.
You don't want to be shoving, you don't want to try to build a really great load with that grubby old brass. In fact, I talked to a hunter bench rest competitor, and he's won the championships a couple times.
Oh, wow.
He tells me that he spends 20 plus minutes on each case.
Whoa.
Prepping. I know. And I'm like, really? I dump them in the tumbler and get them all nice and clean, and then bring them out and get started on that stuff. So yeah, get them all cleaned up and then start working. Another step that a lot of guys will put in there is annealing. And annealing is a good thing. I think we've shown some good stuff here on the channel with that.
Annealing made perfect amp Mark II is the way to go. Inductive, computer controlled, highly optimized, highly repeatable, and it's not a mess.
And it's not a mess.
It's quick, it's not a mess, it's repeatable. Yeah, so you're going to want to check out our full story on the Mark II. We use it all the time. Good stuff. But yeah, you have to decide, do I need to anneal in the first place?
Right, and you know, some guys anneal pretty much every time that they shoot and go to reload that brass, and others wait a few firings. And then other guys are saying, what's annealing?
Right.
So check out that video.
Yep, there's two reasons. There's two reasons for annealing, just to cover that real quick. One is the longevity of the case.
Yes.
If you're going to reload it a whole bunch of times, that's going to help prevent that fatigue and cracking and maybe even a separation of the case. And then the second is consistency. And sometimes getting to the correct hardness level for the type of forming that you're going to do, especially if you're wildcatting. Like if you're going to take, have you taken 30-06 brass and necked it down to like 25?
I have not.
6?
I got some of that from another hand loader, and it had been badly overworked. The necks were cracking and brittle, and
there you go.
Yeah, that brass one just went away.
I've done some pretty crazy reforming here on the channel, 25-45 sharps, for instance, and the annealing is a super critical part. You know, sometimes multiple times to go from one, cartridge to another. So yeah. Annealing is definitely a good capability to have, but you know, especially if you're using new brass, may totally not be necessary. So the lubing and the full length resize. So what's your go-to lube for this limited quantity ammo?
I like to use the wax stuff. The
Imperial?
Yes, thank you. The Imperial. Hornady makes something that's very similar. I've got some other stuff called Frog Lube from CLP that works really well.
Lee makes their own.
Yeah. So I wonder if they all make their own.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It all seems to work about the same, and it's good stuff. And it's so it just takes a little tiny bit, wipe it on that case, and you've got it. You know.
And I've never stuck a case when I've properly used the sizing wax, whereas I have with some of the spray-on types and that kind of thing, depending on the proportions of the surface area and the size of the case rim. If you're doing 223, that's where you want to be really conscious of your lube. You've got a lot of friction in there and not a whole lot of rim for that shell holder to grab onto. It's easy to just rip it right off.
I'm not liking this whole part of this discussion. It just gives me whim-whams as a hand loader to think about getting a case stuck up in my sizing die.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. But when you have a lathe in the shop, it makes it a little less stressful because that makes it real easy to pull out. And there's multiple tools as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then full length resizing. This time you're using the Reading National Match set, which is a nice set.
It is. It worked just fine. And with a hunting cartridge where I may have a magazine full of ammo, and you know, it doesn't always work, guys. We all want that one shot, super duper, extremely well placed, instant kill, boom, down, done. That doesn't always happen.
Sure.
For whatever reason, animal doesn't go down right away. Maybe it needs a second shot, or God forbid, a third or fourth shot. But those happen too. And full length resizing, for me, has proven to be extremely reliable feeding.
Yeah.
And I like that in a hunting rifle. I do neck size sometimes, but most of my hunting ammo, full length resize.
And using a quality case gauge is going to ensure that you have the right result there as well. Yeah, that's a good thing.
It just drops right in there and good to go.
Yep. And we have here checking the case length and trimming. You can check both of those with a good case gauge as well.
Yep.
Now the deburring of the flash hole.
Controversial subject.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Yep. Some guys really bought into that, like I did for a while, and I still do it on occasion just because I've got the tool there at home in the drawer, and you know, that's something to do. So
you're semi-retired.
Yeah, semi-retired. You're making me busier and busier.
That's right.
You know, go in there and just work the inside of that, because I tell you, if you haven't ever taken a look inside a case, most of the time they just punch that hole through, and it leaves kind of like this nasty little eruption almost inside there.
Yeah.
And you can trim all that off, and theoretically you would think that makes a big difference. I haven't seen it in my groups.
Yeah, or how about velocities on the chronograph? I actually haven't gone deep into that, and I think that would be an interesting experiment to look at.
It'd be pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Deburr some, don't deburr the others, run them on the chronograph,
Make
run
sure
them
you
for
have
groups.
some that look really variable.
Yeah.
In your control set.
Pretty raggedy looking ones.
Yep, the before picture, as it were.
Yeah.
Yep. Chamfering and deburring the case mouth. This is where you can go from mild to wild. You've got your little handheld tool, and it doesn't take as much as you think. You just need to break the edge. You don't need to sharpen it to a sharp case mouth or anything like that. If you have something like the Henderson trimmer, where it does a 3-way trim, then you can trim to length inside and outside chamfer all in one pass, and it tends to look better.
Nice.
Because it's high speed and it's controlled with the pilot and the whole thing. But yeah, at this point, our case prep really is done, and we can move on.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what he was doing for the other 15 minutes of his 20 minutes on each case, but hey, he won the national championship.
He must be turning the case necks.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
There's a lot more you can do.
Exactly.
And I have never bothered to do that.
Right. I'm going to go down that path. I want to do a 30 BR. That's a whole nother topic.
Of course you are.
Yeah. Greg Sweezy up at Gold Creek Rifles showed me some stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been talking with Paul McMiniman at Accurate Shooter about that kind of stuff. So anyways, okay, so got to get a primer in there, right? That's going to hold the powder in.
Yep. So we've selected our primers. There's some kind of match primer, either from CCI or Federal or whoever, and we've got that match primer. And then I like to seat by hand. I like off the press, even if I've got a press that I can seat them on there. I like doing it by hand, a handheld one, or on the bench. We played with that Forster here a while ago, and it does a nice job of priming.
Yeah. You get a different ergonomics if you have arthritis in your hands or something. That's a real nice way to do it. Yeah.
And you spoiled me once by letting me use that competition.
Oh
sitter.
yeah,
that was amazing. I couldn't believe we were charging 45 or priming 4570 brass on that thing.
Yeah,
it was funny. But that's a great piece of gear.
Yeah.
So you got to prime carefully, and you're looking at a couple things. The biggest is consistency. Get it well seated into the brass so that you don't take your doggone cartridge case and put it out here and wobble all around.
Yep.
That's a bad feeling, especially when you're going to be putting it in your magazine and running it bolt and all that. I don't like that.
If you have a way to check, it's good to have the primer about 3 to 5 thousandths below the surface of the back of the case rim.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we get them primed. That's easy enough. Takes a little time, but no big deal. Powder charge. Well, using this thing, this is a monster. This is like the massive case, or powder capacity championship of the reloading world.
Right.
I love it. You don't have to keep putting more powder in it. You just keep on cranking out rounds. It's nice. And with the Varget being a stick powder, it was throwing pretty consistent charges. It does better if I feed it ball powder. But so what I was doing was throwing my powder charge on this, and then I had my little scale all set up and weighing that and using the trickler and bringing it all up. Just right up to spec. If I got one that was over, which occasionally it did, I just pour it back in there and go.
Sure.
And it was nice, fast, easy process. Honestly, same way I've been loading since I was like, a little dude. And it's just, this is a really good powder measure. It does everything it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I love the capacity on it.
Yeah.
And then back to the Marksman for seating.
Yep, back over here for seating, and we had this good competition type seating die. One of the things I like about this, and it's in common with some of the Hornady dies, has got that sleeve that comes down and helps guide your cartridge case right on, and bullet right on up into the die, and helps align everything. And that, working with the floating shell holder, boy, you're producing some pretty nice ammo.
Yep, definitely.
And if you need to adjust how deeply that bullet's being seated, this makes it a breeze.
The micrometer's the way to go. Yeah.
And you can even you can jot down little notes to yourself about where you've got it set for this particular bullet or something. I'm kind of funny when it comes to 308. I just load them to 2.8.
Yeah.
It's like, there they are. They fit in the magazine.
Mag length,
Yeah, they fit in the magazine. You don't have to worry about that. When the Krieger barrel there was chambered, it was nice, tight, Palma match type chamber, and it seats these things in there just right. But if you go much over 2.8, A, you're not going to get them in the magazine, and B, they're not going to chamber.
Yep.
I had a buddy of mine showed up for a match with a bunch of long-loaded ones that wouldn't fit in the magazine.
Right.
I never saw anybody single load so fast.
Yeah.
He did pretty good.
And this is where a little extra jump, like I think you're alluding to, is better than a problem. I mean, the worst problem for hunting would be you need to pull the round out, the bullet sticks in the lands, you got powder flying out in your mag well, you know.
Your rifle is then inoperable.
Exactly.
You've got a bullet stuck in the lands. It's not going anywhere. You got powder all through your magazine, and it's in the raceways and in the bolt face, and powder everywhere. Ask me how I know this.
Yep.
Okay, I seated some too long. I've been there. I've done that.
Yep.
So to me, precision is what we're after with this story, but reliability still comes first.
So on that note, have you ever gone so far as to use the red sealant between the bullet and the case neck, and then around the primer as well?
I've done the primer,
okay,
but not the bullet.
So that for hunting ammunition, that would be interesting to play with, because obviously that could
waterproofs it.
Waterproof it, even though ammo is inherently waterproof, right?
Pretty
the press
waterproof.
fit is usually pretty good with the primer and with the bullet as well.
Yeah, I haven't ever
Another
had
test. Let's do that as a test.
Okay,
I'd say. Break
fair
down
enough.
some rounds.
Yeah.
Figure out the moisture. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Go swimming with bullets in our pockets.
Yeah, there you go.
Things like that.
And then you can check your bullet run out.
Yes.
And it's good, I think, to test chamber a few rounds. You know, if you're throwing the safety, throw a few in the magazine, cycle them through, and just make sure that, or with the gun pointed in a safe direction at hunting camp, do that final check. You know?
Yeah, even if this, I would say that's a good thing to do at the range, the rifle
Sure.
range.
With the pointed down range.
Yep,
Yeah.
pointed down range, yeah. Maybe not in the family room.
Right.
So
maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know. Not in my family room.
Yeah.
My wife would have a fit. So that would be no good. No bueno. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, to review the rifle again before we talk about your field results with this load.
Sure.
So this is the Green Machine. Tell us about it.
Green Machine, bought it used back in '95, and it was made a couple of years before that by Remington. It was a Remington 700 VS, varmint synthetic, so it had the Remington contour barrel, much like this Krieger, same contour, had the same stock, and it's been through a couple of different scopes over the years. I eventually took it over to Jim Cloward over on the west coast, or west side of the mountains over here, and had him true up the action and put the Krieger barrel on there. It's a 24-inch, 1-to-12 twist. We did it specifically for that gold medal 168 grain ammo.
Was this when it was a service rifle?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I used that as my SWAT sniper rifle for
So
12 years.
This is an actual sniper rifle. There's a lot of sniper rifles out there that could be one. This is an actual one.
Yeah. It's been on a bunch of call-outs. And, it's funny. It's so basic and simple compared to, like, a lot of the rifles that you've built. And it's just real low budget, and yet it's a good rifle.
Well, it's been true, and it's got a Krieger barrel. Sounds pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, it works for me. It's won some matches. I used to shoot those NRA prone matches out at 600. It's done real well in some of those. It's done real well in some of the practical, tactical stuff before the PRS series appeared.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time to breathe a little bit of extra new life into it by threading the muzzle, I would say.
I would very much like to do that.
Do you know anyone with a metal lathe that could do that?
There was this guy. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I think we can do that.
I think that's a great way to do it. And then, so you have the HS Precision stock.
Yep.
And then the SWFA 6 power scope, which
Right.
you were saying that you really like the value of.
I do. It's, for $300, you get a heck of a scope. That thing is real tough, pretty darn precise. I know a lot of good shooters who have one as their backup scope, just in case their expensive, whatever it is, goes belly up on a match day or something, or just
Nice.
before a match. And they've got one of these sitting in a drawer somewhere they can bolt on, and they know it's going to work. It may not be the brightest, may not be the best, but it's a good scope. And for $300.
Well, 6 power, are you going to use that for hunting?
Oh yeah, I have.
I mean, that's what this article is
Yes,
about. and
absolutely.
Video. Right.
I got stuck on 6 for scope power. You know that. I've got on my 25-06, my 30-06, my 308 all have 6 power scopes on them, and I just like that. I know exactly what the magnification is going to be when I pop that thing up. Now, if you're looking at real extended ranges and maybe smaller targets, 6 power isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at bear, deer, elk, out to about 400 yards.
Sure.
I'm absolutely happy with this.
Yep. Muscle memory, right? Get used
Yeah.
to something and stick with it. So let's talk about range results.
Range results. Well, you got to understand that first time I used this load was, oh gosh, probably back in the early 2000s as a match load.
Let's go
And-
over the load specifics. I don't think
Sure.
we've talked about that yet.
We haven't really.
You said Varget.
Yep.
You've got BR2s there.
Yep,
You mentioned
BR2s.
Those are good. Which bullet is this?
This is the 155 grain Berger VLD. And this bullet, the 155 grain weight in 308 comes from Palma competition. And they were limiting by design. It's 800, 900, 1,000 yards, prone, sights, only the sling for support. And the bullet weight was limited for many years to 155 and less. I think
Gotcha.
156 and down is what they
Gotcha.
said. So 155 became the popular thing. And in a barrel that's a couple inches longer, my old match rifle had a 30-inch barrel, no problem getting over 3,000 feet per second with that. This one, yeah, 28, 2850. This particular batch showed up at 2838, and with good tight spread and a really nice
Yeah,
groups.
16-foot ES and 6 FPS SD. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm very pleased. And that's I like my Varget. There's other good powders, but I do like my Varget.
It's a go-to for multiple cartridges for me.
Yeah, and I was so fortunate to go into this shortage with a couple of these
Oh yeah.
on hand.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that was nice.
If your house was on fire, we'd see you running out with your jugs of Varget.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. What about the family pictures, right?
The what?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well, pulling the Varget out of the fire would probably be a good
That's a
idea.
good thing
anyway.
anyways,
Yeah,
yeah.
get the gunpowder out of the fire. I like
Yep.
that. Yeah.
So 100-yard 5-shot groups around the half-inch mark.
Yes. Some were a little over, some were a little under. I shot some 5-shot groups off the bipod from the bench, and when I can shoot half MOA with what I consider a hunting load, I'm feeling really confident.
I give that 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
Mission accomplished.
most of my hunting rifles, roughly an inch at 100, inch and a quarter, and I'm satisfied with that. I turn to these match type loads time to time, and boy, they make you feel good.
Yep. Good all-around performance, definitely.
Yeah.
And so the field results. You've had multiple game taken with this bullet specifically, or?
Well, with Berger bullets.
Okay, gotcha.
And some VLDs, and last year with the Elite Hunter, but not this specific bullet. Maybe I'll change that this year.
Which Elite Hunter were you using?
180 grain, 30 caliber out of my 30-06.
Okay,
with
right.
virtually the same velocity I'm getting out of the 155s with the 308. And every
Wow,
one of
that's cool.
yeah, 30-06 has got some suds.
Yeah.
But every one of those deer, all 4 of the mule deer over a span of, gosh, the first one was in 08, and then the last one was just last year. So I don't use Bergers all the time, but sometimes I do, and each one of them was one shot, instant drop. They don't even take a step.
Nice.
And I was like, wow. And I know that the Berger hunting bullet thing is very controversial because a lot of people just don't like them. I think some folks don't understand them. Berger promises, they advertise, I don't know if they promise, but they advertise that their bullet is going to go in 2 or 3 inches, and then when it gets into the chest cavity, violent expansion and destruction. That's what I've seen in all 4 of my deer.
Wow. So that's kind of an optimization, right? You don't want the bullet to do all of the destruction before it gets to the vitals.
Right, and that's what a lot of folks don't understand. Maybe they've seen something that I haven't. But what I've seen is it gets through, and it's almost like a little pinprick hole, almost hard to find the entrance wound sometimes. But the destruction inside is like nothing else I've ever seen from a hunting bullet.
Wow.
Just heart and lungs are just zapped.
Gone.
And then you get that instant drop, good to go. That's been good for me. I don't really care about a bullet exit. I have found a couple of the Bergers on the offside after going through both shoulder blades of a mule deer.
Wow.
Found the little remnant there on the other side. And who forgot to bring it out because I was quartering up my deer and backpacking it out back up to the truck. and I left it sitting right out there.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah, it's sitting on a rock out there in Mills Canyon. So what can I say?
That's really great performance. I'd be
like
really
it.
happy with that.
And now if I was going for bigger, heavier game, I might not select the burger. Or maybe I'd select a bigger, heavier burger.
Sure.
But there's a whole lot of other good hunting bullet options out there, and some of those are quite capable of excellent matched grade accuracy with a more traditional hunting bullet. And so if that's the way you want to go for it.
Yep.
Okay? Yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat.
This is really good, and this was one example, right? One 308 load, looking at loading for hunting and doing it with precision. And I love the fact that this is kind of a match-oriented cartridge with the 155 and its legacy and your results that you've had. So our question for you is, what loads do you have that have ultra precision and are also suitable for hunting in terms of the velocity, in terms of the bullet that you chose? Tell us what cartridge you're shooting, tell us what kind of rifle that you're shooting it out of, and tell us what kind of results that you've gotten. Was it a real long-range shot that you were able to take? How did that go? You know, each story is a little bit different. We would definitely like to hear yours. Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. Thank you, Guy, for sharing this story, and we got hunting season coming up, so this is perfect timing. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, make your voice heard. If you have something to say, please drop a comment. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the awesome content that is coming up. And finally, flex your reloading pride. You could look great in one of these t-shirts. We've got multiple designs at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'll see you later because I'm off to go shooting.